Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today we are doing part 2 of a series of videos about short answers. And we're going to look closely at that clauses. So, very quick reminder. A short answer is an answer that does not repeat all of the words from the question. And often we don't want to repeat the information in a that clause. So in this lesson I'm going to show you how we can say a short answer which replaces a that clause. Okay, it makes a that clause very short. So let me give you an example. Mark asks, "Do you think that you passed the exam?" So here is a that clause. Do you think that you passed the exam? And here is a long answer. So Jane replies, "I hope that I passed the exam." Okay, so Jane replies, "I hope that I passed the exam." So Jane here is repeating the that clause. So this is not what we want to do. This is correct. It is grammatically correct, but it is not a good style of English. This is too long. Okay, so how do we say this in English, in good English? Well, this is how we say it. I hope so. I hope so. So we replace the that clause with the word so. So we have the verb, the first verb, I hope, and then we simply say the word so, S-O, so. And this is our short answer. And sometimes, and I will show you this in this lesson, sometimes there isn't a that clause in the question. Sometimes there is just a normal question without a that clause. But we still use this structure because sometimes we want to use a that clause in our answer. Okay, so sometimes we need to use a that clause in our answer, but we choose not to. We choose to use the short answer with the word so. Okay, so sometimes there is no that clause in the question. Okay, so this is wrong, by the way, and I include this in the video because in many other languages this is correct. For example, in French, this is how they do it in French, for example. I hope it. But in English this is wrong. Okay, don't say I hope it. We say I hope so. And this is wrong as well. I hope. This is very common with English students. I hear this a lot. When they give a short answer, they say, "Yes, I hope." And I often have to correct it. So it's I hope so. Okay? And here are the verbs that use this structure. Okay? Because obviously we cannot use this with all verbs. So we use this with hope and also these verbs. So it's believe, hope, expect, imagine, suppose, reckon, think, and be afraid. Now this isn't a vocabulary lesson. Today's lesson is not a vocabulary lesson. So I suggest that you look in a dictionary, that you note these verbs down, and you look up the exact meaning in a dictionary after this video. But I will explain in this video that many of these, the meaning is very, very similar. Okay? Very, very similar for many of these verbs. Let's look at some examples. So here's a question. David asks, "Are you going to New York next week?" Now here is a good example because you can see that there is not that clause in the question. But a full answer, a long answer, it needs a that clause. So let's look at the short answer. I believe so. I believe so. So this is a short answer that replaces this with the that clause. So a full long answer would be, I believe that I'm going to New York next week. So John is saying, yes, I believe that I'm going to New York next week. Okay. In this context, believe, we're not talking about believing in religion or that context. Here, believe simply means I think. Okay. But we can also say there are many possible answers here. I expect so. I think so. I reckon so. So these four, if when you look in a dictionary after this video, you will see in fact the meaning of these four verbs is very, very similar, and they all mean I think. Okay, I expect so. I reckon so. I believe so. The general meaning is I think so. Okay, so these are very, very similar. So this obviously replaces I expect that I'm going to New York next week. I think that I'm going to New York next week. I reckon that I'm going to New York next week. Okay? But in the affirmative, we replace it with the word so. And later in this video, I will explain how to put this in the negative. But this is the affirmative. This is when we are saying yes. Then we also have I imagine so and I suppose so. Again, these two are very similar to these four. This one is these two, imagine and suppose, they are more vague. Okay, it's less certain. And I suppose, when someone says I suppose so to this question, it suggests that perhaps they are not very motivated. They are not very interested in the subject. They're not particularly interested in going to New York. So it's quite a vague answer. Okay, but the overall meaning is I think. Okay, so again, look in a dictionary after this video and you'll see lots of examples in the dictionary of what this means exactly. Now this one is different. I hope so. So obviously this one means, this suggests that John is motivated. He really wants to go to New York. He hopes that he will go to New York. Okay, I hope that I'm going to New York next week. Okay, so there is a suggestion of wanting to go. And this one is very different. So I'll put this slightly further down the page. I'm afraid so. So this means yes, but with regret. So afraid here, it does not mean fear. John is not scared. John is not scared of going to New York. But I'm afraid so, it means yes, unfortunately, I am going to New York next week. So when someone says I'm afraid so, they are not motivated. They don't want to go, or they don't want to do the activity. They're saying yes with regret. Okay, so here we have the verb to be followed by afraid. So it's I'm afraid, you're afraid, he's afraid. Okay, so top four mean the same, think. These two also mean think, but much more vague. and this one means you're not very motivated. Hope means you're very motivated. You want, yes, the answer is yes, and you are very motivated and you want to go to New York. And here it's yes with regret. Okay? So now the opposites. How do we put those structures in the negative form? Well, let's start with an example. Is the manager coming to the party? So here is the form for the negative. So we have that we put the verb in the negative form. So we have the negative form of the verb followed by so. Example. So Jane says, I don't believe so. So is the manager coming to the party? And Jane replies, I don't believe that the manager is coming to the party. So remember, believe means think. So Jane is essentially saying, I don't think that the manager is coming to the party. So the form is, we take the verb, we put it in the negative form, I don't believe, and we add the word so. I don't expect so. I don't think so. I don't reckon so. I don't imagine so. And I don't suppose so. So an example here, when Jane says, I don't reckon so, this means I don't reckon that the manager is coming to the party. So again, so replaces the that clause. Okay, but there are two exceptions. Notice that there are two verbs which are missing here. We only have 6 verbs, but we had 8 verbs earlier. So there is a different form for 2 of the verbs. So we have 2 exceptions. The verb hope uses this form. Okay, so hope does not have this form. With hope, we say hope followed by the word not. So Jane replies, I hope not. Is the manager coming to the party? I hope not. I hope not. Okay? So here this means I hope that the manager is not coming to the party. Okay? And it's the same with be afraid. Jane replies, I'm afraid not. So is the manager coming to the party? I'm afraid not. So here Jane is saying no with regret. So this means that in fact Jane would like the manager to come to the party, but it is not true. The manager is not coming to the party and Jane regrets that. Okay, Jane would prefer the manager to come to the party. And here Jane is saying no, the manager is not coming to the party. It means that she doesn't want the manager to come to the party. I hope not. I hope that the manager does not come. Okay? So let's look at some more examples of the affirmative and the negative. Okay, so there are 6 more examples. So Mark says, I think that you'll get the job. And Jane replies, I hope so. I hope so. So here we do have a that clause in the statement. Notice it is not always a question. Mark is making a statement, an affirmative statement, and Jane is agreeing and saying, yes, well, I want to get the job. I hope that I get the job. I hope so. And here is a question without a that clause. Is it going to rain tomorrow? And David replies, I don't think so. I don't think so. So I don't think that it is going to rain tomorrow. So here we have an example of the negative. The verb in the negative followed by so. And he doesn't think it is going to rain tomorrow because today it's a lovely day. There are no clouds. Will you be at the concert? I expect so. I expect so. So Sarah is saying, I think so. It is planned that I will be coming to the concert. Okay? So, will you be at the concert? I expect that I will be at the concert. I expect so. So here we have the affirmative, verb followed by so. Jane asks, have you bought me a gift? And Mark replies, I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not. So here is an example of the negative with the form that is an exception. Remember that afraid has the alternative form. I'm afraid not. So Mark is saying no with regret. Okay, so I regret that I have not bought you a gift. Claire asks, is Jane going to call you? And Mark replies, I imagine so. I imagine so. So I imagine that Jane is going to call me. So yes, I think that Jane is going to call me. Verb followed by so. And John asks, is it going to snow tomorrow? And David replies, I hope not. I hope not. So here we have the negative form, and this is also one of the exceptions. So the verb hope takes the word not in the negative. Okay? I hope that it is not going to rain. Sorry, I hope that it is not going to snow tomorrow. Okay? So he doesn't want it to snow tomorrow. Okay? So there we are. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you're interested in private online lessons, then click here for the prices. And here are some other videos that I recommend.